Haram love. This is a story of an unacceptable or forbidden love affair resulting from racist motives between a Sudanese Arab girl and a black African boy from South Sudan. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by the reviewer, who may extract brief passages from the review for printing in a general magazine, a school journal, or a university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 6. An Arab girl is in trouble in a strange land. The penniless and homeless girl, Aysen Sulla al-Junaid, stood in front of the train at the railway station in Port Sudan City. She is tired and exhausted from the long journey she traveled for 14 hours without food and money. She is hungry and thirsty. She could barely see the people around her. Her vision is blinded by hot tears, and her heart is frightened by the harsh reality of her desperate situation. She lost her way before she could walk a few steps from the long train. She has nothing to claim as her luggage, except her clothes and the shoes she wears on her body and feet. She does not know anyone in the cosmopolitan city, which is the second largest city in Sudan after Khartoum. She does not know where to go and to whom to go. She lost hope in life before she could understand life. Aysen sat on a wooden bench and waited. She did not wait for anyone and did not expect anything. She knew that only death could save her from her desperate situation. She guessed what would happen to her if she dared to leave that station. She will become a homeless girl on the streets. Even the streets won't keep her down for long. Those who pick her up off the streets in their cars won't keep her for more than a few hours. And when they satisfy their lust for her sexy young body, they will take her back to the streets. Who would be interested in keeping a homeless girl picked up off the street? Which Muslim family would agree to shelter a girl who came from nowhere? When the streets tire of her, Aysen knows where to stay next. There she can find shelter for her body, but not for her conscience. In those brothels, she will be sexually exploited and abused by everyone. She should be satisfied with being called a bitch. Every police officer in town will know her. Repeatedly, she will be arrested as a prostitute. She will turn into a commodity for sale to men. Then she will be devoid of shame. She will smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, and take drugs. But none of these tranquilizers could remove the shame or calm the voice of her conscience. While she was contemplating her desperate condition and her unknown fate, Aysen felt the presence of someone sitting near her. She turned her face and saw a short, ugly-looking man. The man smiled at her, but she looked at him with fear. He pushed his body closer to her until his knees touched her thighs. Aysen immediately got up from the wooden seat and walked quickly, trying to get away from him. The man rose to his feet and began to follow her. She looked around for help from the police or any respectable person. She noticed that most of the people on the station platform were not the kind of people a homeless girl could ask for help. Only beggars, loiterers, hustlers, homeless people, and other scary-looking people can be seen scattered here and there. Her quick steps led her out of the station and into the crowded streets of Port Sudan. Like blazing tongues of fire, the scorching summer heat attacked her skin. She started shaking and sweating as if a bucket of hot water was thrown at her. She continued walking and the chasing man continued to follow her. Every now and then, she would look back and see the man following her like a stray dog. Aysen tended to pick up some stones and scare him. She realized that this would attract the attention of others. Aysen resisted the idea and hurried along the path. The stalker quickened his steps and began to approach her. She gathered her strength and walked faster. Her walk turned into a jog. The man started running too. Her fear made her run away from her pursuer, as if a monster demon were chasing her with his horns on his square head. The ugly man chased after her at full speed. Aysen found herself running on a path with fewer people. People wear dirty clothes, and their dirty hair covers their heads like wild trees in the jungle. They're a branch of the Beja tribes, which foreigners call Fuzzy Wuzzy people. They're from the Hadandawa tribe in eastern Sudan. Aysen stopped and spoke to them in Arabic. She discovered that these Beja people do not understand her language. They gathered around her like savages in the forest who had never seen a civilized girl and began to stare at her. She then saw the stalking man, the short, ugly guy, standing behind her. He put his hands around her waist and spoke to the people in their language. Aysen somehow pulled her body out of his grip and faced him angrily. The man grabbed her from the front again as if he wanted to hug her and rape her in front of everyone in broad daylight. She struggled to free herself from his strong grip. When she was unable to free her body from him, she began screaming for help. People started laughing and pointing their fingers at her. Aysen was astonished by people's ridiculous reactions. She expected them to save her before the ugly man raped her in front of their eyes. One of these people stopped a taxi. The ugly man started dragging her towards the cabin door. Two men from the crowd helped the man drag Aysen into the taxi. The taxi driver came out and spoke to the man in Arabic. "Wait a moment, please. Before you take this girl into my taxi, tell me what she is to you." "She's my sister. I found her at the railway station. She was planning to run away with a man she described as her lover." The taxi driver looked suspiciously at the man. He noticed that there was a significant difference between the short, ugly guy and the pretty girl. She is a white Arab girl, and he is an ugly black man from the Beja tribe. "Okay, get her in," said the taxi driver. The bad man and the two other people forced Aysen into the back seat. Then the stalker rushed over and sat next to her, put his hand over her mouth, and closed it. His other hand was holding Aysen's hands for fear that she would slap him or strangle him. She struggled violently to free herself from his strong grip, but she couldn't. She is sweating profusely, and her heart is beating fast. She couldn't believe her mind with the reality she saw with her eyes. How could she so quickly fall into such a sinister plot to kidnap and rape in broad daylight? Will the ugly man and the taxi driver rape her together? Will they expel her after they raped her, or will they kill her to hide their heinous crime? These questions were worrying Aysen's mind while the taxi was speeding away. As her mind desperately tried to find an escape from the kidnapping and rape, she heard the man and the driver start screaming at each other. "I told you to take us to the Kilo area. Why did you change direction, and now you are heading towards the other side?" the man shouted. The driver shouted back, "If this girl is your sister, you have to prove it to the police station." "What do you mean, driver?" "I told you that she is the daughter of my auntie Haskanita bint Hamish Kurab. She is related to me through my late Aunt Haskanita. Tell this story to the police officer. I personally work as a confidential informant in the Port Sudan Police Department." The kidnapper found himself in a dangerous situation. He could not do anything to prevent the cabbie from taking him to the police station. By then he saw that the taxi had entered the main street. Many people were standing on both sides of the street. "Please, sir, stop the taxi and let me down. You can take this sweet girl for yourself and have fun with her for free. I am willing to pay your fare." "I don't want your money, you evil con man. You must pay the price for trying to kidnap and rape an innocent Arab girl like this." A few minutes later, the taxi stopped in front of the police station. The driver opened the door and violently removed from his car the stalking man who attacked and kidnapped the innocent girl. Two policemen joined the driver and dragged the criminal out. They started punching his face and body with slaps and kicks. They spat on his ugly face and kicked his short body with their heavy police boots until he almost lost consciousness. They dragged his semi-conscious body into their confinement room. An hour later, Aysen was interrogated by a senior police officer. "What is your name?" the police officer asked. "My name is Aysen Sulla Al-Junaid. How did you fall victim to your kidnapper?" "I am from Kassala City. I came to visit my relatives in Port Sudan City. While I was waiting for my relatives to come to pick me up from the railway station, this bad man approached me. I moved away from him, but he followed me everywhere I went. When I ran out of the station, he ran after me. Then he caught me and told people that I was his sister. I had never known him or seen him before. He would have kidnapped, raped, and killed me if the taxi driver had not saved me from him. Do you have your relative's address?" Yes, sir. This is my relative's address. Eson then gave the card to the senior police officer. The police officer read the address and asked Dyson, "Do you have a police officer among your relatives?" "Yes, sir. He works as a senior official on Sudanese railway trains, and his name is Police Officer Khaled Mohammed Yahya." "Sergeant Ali Omar, please take this good Arab girl to this address in the police car immediately." Chapter 7. The Fairy Mermaid of the Red Sea. Police Officer Khalid Mohammed Yahya spends more time on the train of worry than he does with his family in Port Sudan. He is married to his cousin, known as Sulwa. Their marriage is a marriage of love. There was no opposition from their families because they were both Arabs and Muslims. Being relatives and from the same tribe, their love affair was approved by everyone, and they were happily united in a halal Islamic marriage. It has been 3 years since they got married. They enjoyed those years. The bride, Sulwa, was transferred from her parents' home to her husband's house 3 days after their wedding. She now lives with her mother-in-law, called Aunt Khadija. Sulwa and Khadija love each other just like a mother and daughter. The only joy missing in that happy married life is having a child. However, neither Khalid nor Sulwa complained about this. Even the mother-in-law Khadija did not accuse her son's life partner of being a barren, childless wife. She always told Sulwa that children are God's gift, and he gives them in his time. For this reason, she prevented her son from visiting the doctor to find out who among the couple was suffering from infertility. Khaled accepted his mother's advice and waited for God's miracle. Besides being a loving wife, Sulwa is a very hardworking daughter-in-law. She does all the housework herself. Her mother-in-law, Khadija, complained a lot about this. She always asks Sulwa to rest and gives her a chance to help with the housework. The daughter-in-law often resists such a request and does everything on her own. For this reason, Khadija looked at Sulwa as a great blessing from God. She bragged among neighbors and relatives about the kindness of the wife of her only son, Khaled, whom she gave birth to before she lost her late husband, Hajj Muhammad Yahya, who passed away after a long struggle with cancer. Husband Khaled also always praised the love and kindness of his wife Sulwa and told his friends about her good behavior towards his mother. Whenever he returns home, he brings a valuable gift to his beloved wife, usually a piece of jewelry. He often brought her expensive dresses and shoes. He often takes her out of the house sightseeing in Port Sudan whenever he has time to do so. Days pass beautifully and wonderfully between her mother-in-law, Khadija, and her daughter-in-law, Sulwa, until one day a strange girl comes to their house. It was one summer evening when the unexpected visiting girl came to them. The two women had just finished their dinner, said their last prayer of the day, and went to bed to sleep. Because inside the rooms the weather was extremely hot, they kept their beds in the house compound. They spent a few hours lying on their beds, talking and gossiping about other people's affairs. This is the happiest time for Khadija and Sulwa. They love to stare at the stars and gossip about others. One dark evening, a soft knock on their outside door disturbed that wonderful time. The two women wondered who would visit them so late in the day. They understood that the unexpected visitor would not be Khaled, because he always called from the Port Sudan General Railway Station and informed them of his arrival. Wife Sulwa wanted to open the door, but her mother-in-law Khadija stopped her. "My good daughter, please do not open the door. We are women and we are alone. Let me call our neighbor, Hajj Hamd, and ask him to know who the stranger standing in front of our outer door is." Then the wise mother called Hajj Hamid and asked him to find out who the visitor standing outside was. It took Hajj Hamid 15 minutes to get dressed, carry his big stick, and call his huge dog Jamjum. He carefully opened his door and came out with his monster dog, which was the size of a lion. His ferocious dog, Jamjum, made a loud noise and frightened the strange girl to death. The guest girl started screaming at the top of her voice and was afraid that the guard dog would eat her alive if it were not for Hajj Hamid's intervention. All the neighbors came out of their homes to see the intruding girl. They all carried sticks, whips, swords, axes, and stones, and were accompanied by their angry dogs and their frightened children. They seemed to the guest in their numbers and shapes like insects of the night. The rabid dogs joined Haj Hamid's big dog, Jamjoom, and began barking like wolves at the strange girl. By then, the unknown girl had become so terrified that she was shaking like a reed and sweating. Haj Hamid shouted at the neighbors and ordered them to catch their cursed dogs before they devoured the creature standing in front of the house of police officer Khalid Yahya. When the dogs and humans calmed down, the frightened pilgrim began to question the strange female. "Are you a human or a demon or the fairy mermaid Alginia, the bride of the Red Sea?" Haj Hamid asked the female creature loudly. The frightened girl said in a crying voice, "I am a human female like you, uncle, and not the fairy mermaid, Alginia, the bride of the Red Sea." As soon as the strange girl informed Haj Hamid that she was a human being, one of the daughters of Adam and Eve, and not a satanic female or a fairy mermaid who emerged from the Red Sea, then the neighbors, their dogs, and their children approached her a few steps closer. More than 30 powerful lights called batteries and lanterns were turned on the strange girl's face. The guest hears the whispers and chatter of women, the sounds of children screaming, and the murmur of men, but she does not see any of them. For a while, those powerful lights continued to move up and down the new girl's body. People are either amazed by the unknown female creature's stunning beauty, or they do not yet believe that she is a human being. Then the strange girl began to hear some elderly people loudly rebuking Satan and praying in the name of God. When pronouncing the name of God Allah and reading the throne verse from the Quran in Surat al-Baqarah did not cause the lovely female creature to disappear, the neighbors became comfortable. Then Haj Hamid shouted at the top of his voice and asked the men to turn off their flashlights and return to their homes with their women, dogs, and children, and leave him alone to deal with the unknown girl's matter. Then, he raised his large stick and knocked on the outside door of the police officer Khalid Yahya's house. The Hajj shouted loudly, "O people of the house, O people of the house, you have a teenage girl who came as a visitor to you from an unknown place." Then finally the two frightened women opened their outer door. Khadija and Sulwa looked at the strange girl for a long time before inviting her to enter their house. As soon as the strange girl's feet touched the soil of their home, the two relatives wanted to know, not her name or where she came from, but the purpose of her visit to them. The two ladies were disappointed when the unidentified girl entered without revealing her reason for coming. As a result of her reputation for generosity, Khadija brought some water to the strange girl and asked her to sit on a chair. The guest girl said quietly, "My name is Aysin Sulla al-Junaid. I am from Kassala City." This information did not explain anything to the two women, and their serious looks revealed to Aysin that more details were needed. "I arrived in town today. I do not have any relatives or acquaintances in Port Sudan City." The additional information made things more complicated for the two women and their faces became angrier. "I recently met police officer Khalid Muhammad Yahya on the train. He gave me this home address. He told me if I needed any help I could visit his family." This last information comforted the mother a little, but it ignited the fire of jealousy in the wife's heart. "Did you come to complain to Police Inspector Khalid about your missing luggage?" the police officer's mother asked. "I have no luggage or money. Khaled is the one who bought me a ticket." "Which ticket?" "My train ticket from Kassala to Port Sudan." "Then what happened to you after that?" "When I arrived at the railway station in Port Sudan, I ran into trouble with a bad man. He tried to kidnap, rape, and kill me, but a taxi driver working as a secret police informant saved me from him." Police officer Khaled may not return home for several days. "Sulwa and I have no knowledge of the law. So, we can't help you solve your problem with that bad guy." "I know that, Aunt. I didn't expect you two to help me this way. I told you that I have no money, shelter, relatives, or other connections in the city." "Why did you come to Port Sudan City alone if you had no money or relatives?" wife Sulwa asked seriously. Before answering her question, Aysin raised her head and looked at Sulwa. Her eyes met a dangerous and suspicious face. "I quarreled with my useless brother Hujan. He wanted to force me to marry his drunk friend. I lost my father and mother when I was young. This means that you fled your home and your city, and also from your guardian, your brother?" Sulwa said angrily. "Yes, that's right, sister. Did Khalid know that you fled your home and country and came to a city where you have neither a relative nor a lover? No, I never told him anything about my life. Without trying to find out whether you had committed a crime or disgrace, my husband, Officer Khalid, gave you his address in the city and asked you to come and meet his family. I have not committed any crime, nor did I fall into any disgrace. How old are you? I am 17 years old. What would you have done if you had not met Police Officer Khalid Yahya on the train? I don't know. Mother Khadija said, well, my daughter, because my son Khalid sent you here, he will definitely find a solution to your problem. What about the neighbors? The daughter-in-law asked her mother-in-law angrily. How can we tell them such a story and expect them to believe it? Sulwa continued loudly. Khadija answered anxiously, I know my daughter. The neighbors will come tomorrow to see her and ask us who she is and where she came from. We will tell them that she is a strange girl. She has no family or relatives. She was a virgin in heaven who fell yesterday from the zodiac sky, or a fairy Alginia bride who emerged from the Red Sea, the daughter-in-law said sarcastically to her mother-in-law. Khadija said politely to Sulwa, I didn't say that, my daughter, but what do you expect me to do? Do you want me to send such a little girl to the streets at this late hour of the night? I know that it is a problem and it has fallen on our heads. As the proverb says, the disaster that falls from the sky is swallowed up by the earth. I knew that my husband Khalid's generosity would bring us misfortune one day and spoil our names among our neighbors. Don't talk like that, my daughter Sulwa. Since my son Khalid was born, he has not brought me any calamity or shame. Do what you want to do, you and your son. If a disaster happens in this house, don't blame me for it. When Sulwa said those words, she got up from her chair and went to bed. Then she lay down on her bed and turned her face in the opposite direction. Mother Khadija said to the unwanted girl, Listen, my daughter Aysin, if you did something bad and ran away from it, days will reveal it, and so your crime or shame will follow you wherever you go. Now let me prepare something for you to eat before you go to sleep. Chapter 8. Worries and Fears of Officer's Wife. The wife Sulwa was the first to wake up the next morning. Her sleep last night was short, and she had many bad dreams and terrifying nightmares. She stayed awake in bed for long hours before falling asleep late last night. She was constantly thinking about the strange guest. Many illusions and possibilities formed in her imagination, such as Khalid falling in love with the new girl because of her wonderful beauty and early age. He may use her lack of children as an excuse and marry the sweet girl in the hope of having a son who will bear his name. Who knows, he actually fell in love with her and used that amazing, unbelievable story to cover up his betrayal. Who will stop him or blame him for that? He will say that Islamic law gave him the right as a man to marry up to 4 Muslim wives at the same time if he so wished. What would happen to her if her man, Khalid, did that? She may lose her husband's love and her mother-in-law's respect and become a first Muslim wife with a young Muslim wife who is competitive and harmful to her in her marital life. All relatives, friends, and neighbors will praise the new wife and show great affection to her children. If she shows any jealousy or disrespect towards the second Muslim wife, her husband Khalid may divorce her or beat her. Who can prevent him from doing this? The Quran allows him to beat his disobedient wife in Surat An-Nisa, verse 34. These thoughts occupied Sulwa's mind for long hours before she fell asleep. When she fell asleep, she saw those fantasies and fears manifested in real life. In her dream, she saw her handsome husband, Khalid, in his wedding clothes, and next to him sat his beautiful new bride, Aysin. She stands like an unwanted first old wife in a remote corner of the house. No one cares about her or wants to talk to her. She was shedding hot tears like raindrops on her cheeks, flooding from her swollen eyes, and snot was flowing from her nose. Her torment and deep sadness forced her to wake up from her dream. But her tears continued to flow from her red, swollen eyes and down her cheeks. Having her tears flood made her believe that the dream would come true. She cried bitterly. When she fell asleep again, She saw the new bride holding a beautiful child in her hands. She wanted to take that baby boy from his mother, Aysen, but her husband Khaled and her mother-in-law Khadija did not allow her to touch him. She fell to her knees and began to wail and cry, pouring dust on her head. No one bothered to pick her up from the ground or console and calm her down. She woke up from her second nightmare and was terrified. She felt as if a female demon had attacked her in her sleep and tried to strangle her to death. This time she decided not to sleep again. When Sowa looked at her watch, she noticed that she had woken up early. She went to the mirror and looked at her image. Her eyes are red, her cheeks are puffy, and her hair is disheveled. The sad wife went to the bathroom and took a shower. Then she spent a long time styling her hair and hiding the traces of her tears and fears. When she went out, she found that her mother-in-law, Khadija, had woken up and was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The unwanted guest is still asleep and having sweet dreams. The jealous wife Sowa approached her and looked at the face of the sleeping beauty, Aysen. Besides her unparalleled beautiful face, Sowa noticed that there was something unique about Aysen. She stared at her for some time. After a lot of thinking, measuring, and comparing the guest to herself, Sowa realized the hidden, mysterious charm of the new girl. The mystery has to do with her short hair, which looks like a boy's hair. Actually, the wife of the officer Khalid has long hair and everyone praises her. But she had never seen or expected to see an Arab girl cut her hair and become like a boy. She became convinced that her hair, cut like a boy's, added charm and beauty to the unwanted visitor. She envied her and wished that her mother-in-law, Khadija, would either expel the strange girl from their house as quickly as possible or force her to grow her hair long until it became like a boy's hair. As Sowa stared at Aysen's face, she seemed to see that her beautiful eyes were gradually opening. They continued to expand until they were completely revealed. She saw that her eyes were the most beautiful feature of her face. Aysen smiled and said to her, "Good morning, my sister Sowa." The innocent smile of the beautiful girl struck the heart of Officer Khaled's wife like a poisoned arrow. Therefore, the envious woman did not return the greeting and did not wish the beautiful girl a good morning, but rather turned her back and walked away. The unwanted girl felt Sowa's jealousy. Aysen correctly guessed the reason for her envy. She thought that the wife, Sowa, might have suspected that the new guest girl and her husband, Khaled, were having a secret love affair. Aysen's heart was filled with fear when she remembered the handsome police officer Khaled's admiration for her beauty when he saw her on the train of worry. During the day, Sowa's jealousy manifested itself in many ways. The mother-in-law also realized the difference in her daughter-in-law's behavior today and guessed the reason. So, she decided to tell her son about it and ask him to find a solution for the new girl. Her main fear is that Sowa will demand to live in a different house if the visiting girl decides to stay permanently. On that day, many neighbors came to visit Khadija and Sowa. In fact, the main purpose of their visits is to see the new girl and find out who is she. Khadija told everyone that Aysen was her relative who lived in Kassala city. She lost her parents and was orphaned when she was a little girl. She was brought up by her older brother, Hussein. Her brother is a drunkard, addicted to alcohol and drugs, and useless. His excessive drinking habit made life difficult for his teenage sister, Aysen. So, she wished she didn't live with him. He has many bad friends who often come to drink alcohol and do drugs with him at his house. Many times, these drunkards tried to rape Aysen or sexually harass her. Some of them had repeatedly harassed and attempted to rape her when her brother became drunk. If she had not screamed and called out to the neighbors every time she was physically attacked, they might have gang-raped her. In addition, her useless brother wanted to marry her to one of these imposters, but she threatened to burn herself. When police officer Khaled visited them recently in Kassala city, Aysen told him about her serious problems and asked him to take her to his wife and mother and live with them in Port Sudan city until her bad brother could mend his evil ways. All the neighboring women believed the tragic story of the beautiful teenage guest, Aysen, which was told to them by her alleged relative, Haja Khadija. A week later, police officer Khalid Muhammad Yahya came to his house. He was incredibly happy when he found the purebred Arab girl, Aysin Silla al-Junaid, in his house. He encouraged his mother and his wife to treat her as a daughter and sister. The jealous wife's fears and worries were allayed when she could not see anything to confirm her suspicions. During his second visit, more than a month later, the wife, Sulwa, was convinced of the loyalty of her husband, Khaled, and the innocence of the guest, Aysin. Chapter 9. The beautiful new girl is dancing at a wedding party. There is nothing that is more exciting, fun, and brings people together in Sudan than a wedding. At the wedding, young people will be able to see the girls dancing and revealing their beauty and the charms of their bodies. Dancing will begin immediately after guests have eaten. First, the bride will dance with her groom. Then the bride's mother and sisters invite the unmarried girls to come forward and dance. No girl will dance with a guy, but alone. She will stand on a carpet, remove the Sudanese sari from her head, and dance. She barely moves from her place. She will simply stand in one place, spread her hands, raise her head and chest, and close her eyes. Then slowly to the music, she will swing her neck and body forward, back, and sideways. The other girls will stand on the same carpet and do the same artistic actions. There is no prior training or standardization in dancing. While the girls dance, young boys approach them and take their shabals. The shabal is a gesture of approval that a girl makes to a boy who approaches her and waves his hand or snaps his fingers above her head. When the girl feels the boy's movement or feels his presence near her with her eyes closed, she will shake her head and touch him with her hair. This consenting gesture is very pleasurable for both the girl and the boy. However, if a strange man or an unknown boy requests or wants to obtain such consent of shabal from a young woman and he is not a relative of the girl or known to her, the result may be bloodshed on the part of her brothers or cousins. It is not permissible for anyone except a relative, a close friend of her family, or a neighbor, to take the shabal from a girl. If a beautiful girl finds favor with a young man, he may give her some money. The money is a paper currency that the boy places on the girl's forehead. If a girl gives the shabal to a young man, it does not necessarily mean that she loves him or wants to marry him. However, many love relationships and marriages began this way. Mothers and sisters will keep their eyes open on such occasions, hoping that a beautiful girl will attract their attention so that they can propose to their son or brother. Boys, of course, are not like girls who need to reveal their beauty and charm through their dancing. Young people have diverse ways to show their courage. When the groom comes to the carpet after he finishes dancing with his bride, he has a long whip in his hand. He moves up and down and hits the air with his whip. A brave boy comes out and takes off his shirt. The groom begins to flog him with all his might on his bare back. This brutal beating continues until another brave boy steps forward to take the place of the first heroic boy. Then a third brave knight accepts, takes up the challenge, and endures the painful beating on his bare back. This flogging continues on the young men, just as the camels are beaten, until the groom gets tired. Mothers, sisters, and other women express their admiration for the young people for their courage, strength, and endurance. They make loud sounds of ululation of joy through their tongues and lips. At that wedding party, the beautiful new girl, Aysin, was the first young teenager chosen by the bride's mother to dance. The bride's sisters also asked the other girls to come out and dance on the big carpet. The whole circle became crowded with dancing beauties. The young men came forward, approached the girls, took their consent of shabals, and placed their money papers on their foreheads. But no girl got as much money as the strange girl, Aysin. The other girls quickly realized this and began to withdraw one by one until the lovely Aysin was left alone on the dance mat. Young people have crowded around the beautiful new girl, all wanting to take her approval of their shabals and bless her with their money. Aysin felt shy when she realized she was left alone. So, she quickly withdrew as well. As she headed toward her seat, she heard screaming and commotion. The boys all screamed her name, Aysin. Aysin. The women demand that she return. Many women blocked her way and asked her to continue dancing. The bride's mother pleaded, saying, "If God is dear to you, and you love his prophet Muhammad, then come back and dance." Aysen said, "Please let me get some rest. I'm getting tired." She also said, "Let another girl dance." Those words of apology from the beautiful new girl, Aysen, were ignored. The bride's mother, sisters, and other women pulled the new beauty back into the dancing circle. Aysen continued to resist and pushed herself back. Only when Aunt Khadija and Sister Salwa joined the group did the new guest agree to dance again. The crowd of young men shouted and praised her, approached her with shabals, and asked for her approval. Aysen was ashamed and put her hands on her face and covered it. The groom approached her, held her hands, and moved them away from her face slowly and gently. This bold action of the groom caused loud shouting and clapping of hands by the young men, admiring the strange new girl who is extremely beautiful, extremely attractive, and sexually exciting to them all. Therefore, the beautiful girl spread her hands like the wings of an angelic being descending from the sky and began to dance. She is like a colorful bird, like a peacock flying above flowers and roses. Within a few minutes, the bills of currency notes were dropped on her forehead and scattered around her. Now she has become like a beautiful, colorful butterfly flying over a garden full of coins. Even the groom was affected by her beauty and wonderful sweetness. So, he approached her face and took his shawl. He put his hand into his pocket and took out a lot of banknotes. Then he threw the entire amount on Aysen's head. The currency notes fell on her head and face, causing her to open her eyes and laugh. She blushed and put her hands on her face to hide her laughter. Then she sat on the carpet on her feet. The groom quickly approached her, put his hands around her waist, and lifted her up as if she were his bride who had scored a goal against him. People were so moved by the groom's action that they cried out their emotions. Aysen resumed her dancing. Everyone claps their hands and sings. The women are ululating, the girls are clapping, the young men are cheering, and the children are screaming with joy. Aysen's beautiful body sways in the air. People's hearts are full of happy moments. Some are sitting around the dance mat. Many others are standing on their feet. People of short stature stand on chairs. Mothers carry their babies on their shoulders. Young people are getting closer and closer to the exquisite beauty of the new girl. On that beautiful night, a handsome young man forced his way through the crowd towards Aysen and took his shawl. Then he took out of his pocket a large necklace of pure gold and put it around the neck of the beautiful new girl. His astonishing action caused a shock, like a quick electric current that knocked everyone silent. One could hear a pin drop. People watched with great amazement such a rare event. No rich boy has ever shown such affection towards a beautiful girl in that cosmopolitan city of Port Sudan. Chapter 10. Love of the noble Arab boy Samir. The next morning, Aysen was the last person to wake up from her sleep. When the beautiful guest woke up, she had a headache. Aunt Khadija approached her and said quietly, "Good morning, my daughter Aysen." "Good morning, Aunt Khadija," the new girl said in a sleepy voice. "I'm sorry I woke up late." "I have a severe headache, Aunt." "A headache? I expected something like this to happen to you," said Auntie Khadija loudly. "Let me get the censer and fill it with incense. You have been bewitched by an evil eye. Not every eye was good looking at you last night. I have to get the incense burner before things get worse. It was not an evil eye that enchanted me, but because of the screaming and dancing, I got this headache. I do not believe, my dear auntie, that anyone, whether man or woman, bewitched me yesterday. You are still a little girl, my daughter Aysen. You don't understand much about these things. There are always evil eyes and envious people. If incense will not drive the evil eye out of your body, then I must take you to the witch Dr. Faki Mamun Wad Jabbar al-Maksura. He is exceptionally good at keeping the evil eye away. It must have been a jealous girl or envious woman who gave you the evil eye. Why not the eye of that crazy boy who gave me the gold necklace?" Aunt Khadija said loudly, "It is impossible. This boy will never give you the evil eye. Don't you know who he is? He is Samir Wad Masood. His father Sheikh Masood is the richest man in our city. He is from a noble family. His parents are pure Arabs who trace their ethnic roots to the Arab prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. You will be the luckiest girl if this noble Arab boy becomes your share in this life. Salwa and I were talking about him. I prayed to God and his noble messenger Muhammad that Samir Wad Masood proposed to you. Is this means he is so great? I don't know much about him. Every Arab family in this big city is waiting for Samir to propose to one of their daughters. The girls are crazy in love with him and they all run after him. He is very handsome and extraordinarily rich. He was born into a noble Arab family, had an excellent upbringing, and received a higher education. He will become a doctor very soon. He is in his final year at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Khartoum. Is he in such high demand among young girls? You must also pray to God and his noble prophet that what Samir did to you yesterday will not be just a night act that will be erased in the morning. But I am not interested in marriage now, Auntie Khadija. Besides, I don't know the boy. My daughter, Aysen. You have grown into a beautiful bride. You saw the way the boys' eyes were looking at you while you were dancing last night. They wanted to eat you for your sweetness. But I don't love that crazy boy who put the gold necklace around my neck and gave it to me as a gift. Love. This is the last thing I expected you to talk about. Samir has already fallen in love with you. If he didn't fall in love with you, why did he give you such an expensive, precious necklace made of pure gold? Maybe he loves me, but I don't love him. He is a handsome boy. Very polite and well-disciplined. From a rich, kind, and noble Arab family. Highly educated. What do you want, my daughter Aysen, for your life partner to be more than that? Okay, Aunt Khadija, if he comes and asks for my hand in marriage, I will think about it. These kind words brought joy to my heart. Now let me get the burner and incense before the evil eye spreads to the rest of your young delicate body. Aysen already felt relief from her headache, but she wanted Aunt Khadija to pamper her a little more. In addition, she needed more time in bed to think more about what they discussed. She learns that the noble Arab boy Samir loves her and that he may try to push the matter further. She told Salwa that she was in a love relationship with another young man from her previous life. Salwa encouraged her to write to him. She sent 3 messages but received no response from her boyfriend. 3 months later, Salwa told Aysen that the boy either did not receive her mail or was not interested in her anymore. Because she left her city with no intention of returning, there was no way to communicate with her boyfriend except through writing. When the correspondence did not work, that emotional door was closed in her face. However, her love for that boyfriend remained in her heart. No matter what happened to her, she concluded that she would continue to keep his love in her heart. Aysen's train of thought was interrupted when she saw Khadija and Salwa rushing into her room. Cheerful, wide smiles adorn their faces. Happy Aunt Khadija holds an incense burner in her hand and spreads white smoke everywhere. While the happy sister, Salwa, places her middle fingers between her lips and ululates joyfully with her mouth and tongue. Hurry up, my beloved daughter, Aysen. Get up, my lucky daughter. I just told you that your happiness will come to your door. Then Haja Khadija shook the censer and incense on the head of the beautiful guest, Aysen, 3 times, and resumed her speech. Samir's mother came here with his sister. They want to see you and talk to you. Please hurry, my daughter. Wear your beautiful dress that your sister Salwa gave you and come to meet these noble Arab women. When Aunt Khadija announced the good news, her censer filled the entire room with white frankincense incense. Aysen and Salwa chased the smoke out of their noses and mouths. Officer Khaled's wife said while coughing, "They're inviting us to dinner at their mansion." Once again, Haja Khadija swung the censer around Aysen's head 7 times and then rushed out. Salwa and the guest girl continued their conversation with coughing, sneezing, and teary eyes. Most likely, said the police officer's wife, coughing. Samir's sister Samira is the one who will tell you about her brother's engagement. Guest Aysen said as she sneezed, but I am afraid. Why are you scared? You should be so happy. I know you are still thinking about that boy you loved when you lived with your drunk brother in your city, Kassala. But you, my dear Aysen, have done everything to contact him. But he didn't reply to any of your messages. What can you do more than what you've already done? Of course, a beautiful young girl like you wouldn't wait for a boyfriend forever. He fell in love with another girl from his tribe and married her and forgot all his love for you. But, my beloved sister Salwa, I am afraid to marry this rich Arab boy, Samir Wad Masood. I don't know anything about him or his family. I'm not sure if he'll stand by me if anything bad happens to me in the future. Of course, he loves you and would sacrifice his life for you if necessary. A Sudanese proverb says, "It is better for you to marry the boy who runs after you than to marry the boy who you are chasing." Samir is a purebred, noble, and very highly educated Arab boy. He will do anything to make you a happy wife. I don't think I'm ready for marriage now. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I am very afraid for my unknown future. With Samir, your future will be as white as milk. There is no girl as lucky as you to win the love of Samir Masood in the two largest cities in Sudan, Khartoum and Port Sudan. Aysen wanted to speak more, but Sulwa pulled her right hand and said to her, "Get up, take a shower, and prepare to meet them." The strange girl, Aysen, entered the bathroom, took a shower, combed her hair, and changed her dress without seeing what she was doing. Meanwhile, she was immersed in deep thought. The more she thought about her dark past, the more she feared her unknown future. Her imagination depicted her past as a monster that haunted her wherever she went. From time to time, she would recall the image of the boy in question and learn that he would be a wealthy, educated, noble Arab orator. She knew that he was very handsome and that he attracted her attention as a young man with a wonderful personality before she saw him last night at the wedding when she danced and everyone admired her. She met him on several occasions and admired his attractive personality and exchanged glances and smiles with him. He spoke politely, wore fine clothes, and spoke wisely. He was truly worthy of praise and admiration from those around him. Aysen knew that out of all the girls, she was the only one who received his admiration and love. However, the beautiful and charming guest, Aysen Sulla al-Junaid, is not sure whether the noble young Arab boy Samir Wad Masood will remain loyal to her, especially when he discovers her dark past. Thinking about this worry bothered her, and she could not find an answer to it. Only the unknown future can tell us and reveal the answer. However, Samir's sister Samira bint Masood spent some time with the beautiful girl Aysen alone in her room. She praised her beauty, personality, and dancing yesterday. Then she revealed her brother's love for her and his willingness to marry her. Aysen remained silent, which is what is understood in Sudanese society as approval for the engagement. If a Muslim girl is told that a young man wants to marry her and she remains silent and will not object, this means that she acquiesces and accepts marriage to him. Later that evening, Aunt Khadija happily confirms her relative Aysen's approval by accepting the invitation to dinner at the mansion of Samir's wealthy Arab family. Thus, the beautiful Muslim girl, Aysen Sulla al-Junaid, was officially engaged to the handsome Arab boy, Samir Masood.